I mean, it was tough. Financially, everything else. When you're in that loop, there, you don't want to do anything. You don't want to go to work. You don't want to eat, but you do. But that's all you want to do.
Alex, how did you find carnivore?
I found Carnivore probably about 2 years ago or so. I experimented with it a little bit, and it just kind of worked. I mean, the convenience factor, especially, when you're the person in the house that cooks most of the meals. It's convenient for meal prep. But even beyond that, looking at less superficial things, you have um, how amazing I have felt. How much this has helped me with my recovery from an eating disorder. It has helped massively in so many ways.
That's awesome. So, um, would you be able to talk a little bit about what happened before carnivore and what led you to the point that you were looking for the solution?
Yeah, so I grew up with some food dependency issues, and that stuck with me until I was about 22. There, that's when I found keto, and I thought that it would fix everything. Um, I mean, you know, somebody tells you you can eat half to like three quarters of the things that you love and lose all this weight. You're like, wow, yeah, I've been overweight the majority of my life. Back as far as I can remember, I was the chubby kid. um so it was tough, the self-esteem issues and stuff that came along with that, and not a lot of people like to talk about that. um I've watched countless interviews with people doing carnivore, and the smallest percentage seem to really delve into the emotional side of things. I just feel like that needs to be said more. Because carnivore in and of itself helps with so many, or in my case at least, has helped with so many you know mental inconsistencies, if that makes any sense. There's the usual brain fog and things like that that people often report, but it feels like more than that. There's like this clarity that comes in, even in your emotional management. Everything just feels easier. So sorry to get sidetracked there. I found keto when I was about 22, and it did not fix my relationship with food. It just fixed everything on the external side. So we, got a little bit extreme with the keto, and jumped into fasting and things like that, and that caused some issues. But we kept going. Um, Eventually, I had some external things that built up, and they all led to this point, which was when I um, actually developed the eating disorder. So from there, it was about 18 months or so of just you know being down in the dumps, and kind of letting the eating disorder run my life. I mean, it was tough. Financially, everything else. When you're in that loop, there, you don't want to do anything. You don't want to go to work. You don't want to eat, but you do. But that's all you want to do. So it was tough. We got through it with some therapy, and coming out on the other end of it, thinking I had fixed my relationship with food, it just kind of came back. Um, and I looked more into, why is this happening beyond. It can't just be me that thinks that I'm not, completely crazy. Um, and that's when I went back into keto and kind of searched around the forums and found carnivore, which I have found a lot on, even delving into the psychological perspective of, like I've said, it kind of just induces this equilibrium. Um, Read a lot about seed oils and how they affect you, and I just I couldn't I couldn't go back. Um, you look at all of this and it's like, man, I spent 18 months and I don't even remember it because I was so just gone. Um, yeah, I mean, if this is an alternative to going back down that road, and it's the only alternative that has worked so far, um, yeah, I took it in a heartbeat, and ever since, it's been just more and more. Just wow, this is awesome.
So, do you mind me asking, like, what was the you said when you had the eating disorder, you didn't wanna do anything except eat. Like, was there any particular trigger each day that made you reach for food, or was it just you just couldn't stop?
I just could not stop. It would be anything from a hunger signal to something stressful to oh, I'm just bored. Like it just became my coping mechanism.
Hmm. So when you kind of got to this transition point 2 years ago and you thought, "Okay, well, I'm gonna give carnivore a try," um, how was that transition process for you?
It was interesting. Um, my wife is not carnivore or keto. She's tried keto. It's not really for her, but that transition was interesting to say the least. So, on that end of things, it became a little bit harder to make a grocery list, obviously. But the important stuff, the transition was actually not too bad. The first couple days there, I had like minimal, I guess, keto flu signs. But I ate probably more than enough to counteract any, electrolyte issues. Um, Other than that, like digestive issues and stuff, that got better, not worse. Like for most people, I hear it gets worse for a little bit. Um, for me, it was so messed up and inconsistent from all of that yeah, it was so much better. Um, and Yeah, really, I mean, everything else was just smooth. I think the most jostling parts were, talking to people outside of my family about it. Because people inside of my family, I have, I think 3 or 4 relatives that are or have been keto. They all know general low carb things. So there's not a lot of like pressure from most of my family about, what I'm eating and stuff. So
So, also in that transition period, was it difficult emotionally? Because as someone who's had a lot of, kind of addictions myself,
yeah.
um, I'm just trying to imagine the tug of war emotionally kind of
Yeah.
getting over the line. How was that?
You know what? It was a mix of that tug of war, but I would say the primary feeling that came in was just relief. Like, ah man, just relief that you can uh you know nourish yourself, if that makes sense. There was that tug of war in the back of my head. Every time I ate, for the first couple weeks there, it was like, you know, am I gonna keep this down? And that whole war would happen. But I realized as I got more into these, first 2 to 4 weeks before the issues just resolved for the most part there, I realized that it became gradually just less and less often. And, more and more often I would eat and I'd be like, wow, that was amazing. I feel great. And then I would walk away and do other things. Um, and now it's not even a second thought in my mind. So
So you mentioned self-esteem before. So I mean, this must have done wonders for your self-esteem to get so much control over what you're eating.
yeah, it did. And I mean, it's great. You just have all of this energy. It's hard not to feel confident about yourself after a certain point when you wake up every morning feeling like I do.
Wow. Uh, so at this point, how is your eating during the day?
It's pretty normalized. So it's about 1 to 2 meals per day. Sometimes three. Um, the work days I'll meal prep and I'll do like a pound of 80/20 ground meat, sometimes with some cheese or butter or whatever, and some salt, and just throw in a container, and that's it. And I eat whatever I want to, and sometimes there's some left, sometimes not, whatever. And then for dinner, I usually have uh, a ribeye or a New York strip. I get whole cuts and cut those up and freeze them, and that's about it. I mean, I'll add some cheese, I'll add some butter, occasional dairy here and there, but mostly it really is just beef and salt, and water. That's it.
And so you mentioned your wife is not carnivore nor keto. So how does it work with meal preparation and stuff like that at home?
That's fun. So it's normally I meal prep on the weekends, and then throughout the week as I cook dinners, she gets leftovers for lunch and she's happy with that. So it kind of, it offsets the pressure of cooking for myself too. So
No, well, that's awesome. But I want to explore a little bit more the emotional side. Like
I understand.
I touched on self-esteem there, but like your whole perspective on things must have changed.
Oh yeah, absolutely it did. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, so when I was keto, and keep in mind, I also had that poor relationship with food. But when I was keto, I had that mindset of, hey, I can or can't eat that. But then there was also this gray area. Um, those foods when you're first keto where you're like, yeah, I could eat one of those and it wouldn't knock me out of ketosis. You're one of those introductory people, like I was. And then, it evolves, and it turns into, I understand, like, seed oils, but with that bad relationship, it expanded from there. With carnivore, the um the mindset has changed, and I will say, in addition to the therapy, um, but it's no longer a I can't eat that. It's just a, well, why would I? What's 2 minutes or 2 seconds of, wow, that tastes really good, versus like the next how long? Because who knows what could happen, especially in my case. um I mean, I haven't eaten sugar or anything like that in 2 years. And you see a lot of people that call it sugar, or they call sugar a drug. I mean, it has similar receptor responses in the brain, right? So, who's to say that that couldn't be similar to a drug addiction, wherein once I have it, it's that's it. Um, so I have a special predicament here, because you have to eat food. It's all around you. It's the one thing that you can't avoid. It's not like a drug. But again, with the sugar and everything else, that's kind of where we're at. So,
So, what about if you talk about practically day to day,
mhm.
what has changed for you with things like work and just relationships and stuff like that?
It's definitely gotten a little bit more stabilized as per with my recovery with carnivore. Um, Other than that, things have suffered a little bit. You know, it's harder to say, "Hey, let's go out and, have a date," or "Hey, let's go out and have some drinks." Um, I don't really do that anymore. I drank 2 times on carnivore, and once was wine and once was whiskey, and both hit me really hard, really quickly, and then they went away within about 45 minutes, and I was left with a migraine. So, I won't go to bars anymore. Um, but yeah, I mean, the social aspect has definitely suffered. In the summer, it's nice, I can disguise things as, barbecues or I'm grilling or whatever, but, um, especially in the winter time during the holidays, that's been tough. Working around it, I will, um I will normally eat what I can if I can, and if not, I'll just eat beforehand, and, if you stay pretty social and have some water in your hand, you're usually good, so.
Regarding your you physically, how have you changed in the last 2 years? Have you lost weight, put on weight, kind of stayed the same?
So at first, I will say, I started in at I want to say around 163 or so. I was pretty low down there. I got up to about 215 within the first 5 or 6 months, and then I've lowered back down and stabilized to about 187 ish. I don't weigh myself much anymore. So that's yeah, but 187 is about a ballpark number. So, and for reference, that came off. I want to say 187. I hit at around the 1 year mark or so.
In the before times, did the weight ever play a role in your relationship with food?
Um, you know what? I'll be honest with you. My relationship with food, um, I think it was pretty well hidden before keto. I think keto showed a lot of the issues that I had with food as an emotional crutch, etc. Um, and after it highlighted those things, you couldn't unhighlight them. But beforehand, uh, when you grow up and you are pretty much the same status of overweight, and it kind of just becomes an it is what it is situation. It's just part of your reality, or at least that's the point that I had gotten to. Um, I had just accepted it, and it really didn't hold any weight on me until, like I said, after I ventured into low carb.
So, what does the future look like for you now? How's your perspective changed on looking at the future, and what are your plans going forward?
I hope to just continue on this carnivore train, stay steady. Um, and the outlook to the future looks better, and it has looked better for the last 2 years than it has in a long time. I mean, even with keto, there was a lot of struggle. Now it's just it feels like a breath of fresh air, so to speak. So, looking optimistically towards the future, and already kind of stressing about you know what um what I'm gonna do when we get around to having kids here soon, and all that. And I don't know how we're gonna manage that, but we'll work with it. But yeah, everything in the future looks pretty good.
Nice. So if there's someone watching now that is struggling with some kind of emotional eating and they're thinking about, "This carnivore thing sounds good. I don't know what to do, or I don't know if I should get started," or whatever, how would you recommend they go about getting started?
I definitely recommend that you do your research on it. Um, a lot of people, like myself, with eating disorders, it takes a lot to hammer it into your brain. Um, I myself and a couple others that I have met with eating disorders have said that it helps it helps to know more than it does to know less, essentially. Make yourself informed going into it, find the right sources, and you know, honestly, I mean, when you have that much anecdotal evidence in front of you constantly, um, it is hard to ignore. And I think looking at the anecdotal evidence and all the information that you can will also help connect and gap that bridge that a lot of us with eating disorders suffer from, which is that split between the emotional side of our brains and the logical side. Um, so it helps bridge that gap, and and I think it'll put you on the right path.
So Alex, do you have, a YouTube or an Instagram if people wanna reach out to you?
I am working on that, but I currently don't.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. It was great